The reason you don't know what to do with your horse isn't because you don't know what to do. I hear this so often from my students. They're riding and everything is falling apart. And suddenly they just think, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Don't worry, you didn't forget. Your brain just went offline. It's okay. It happens to the best of us. In this episode, we're going to see if we can help you fix that problem and make your riding life a little bit easier. Welcome, friends and fellow horse fiends. I'm Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened, and this is the Thinking Horse and Rider, the podcast dedicated to training you to become the best possible partner for your horse. Here, we explore the science and soul of horsemanship. We dive into equine behavior, the psychology of partnership, and compassionate training methods that help you become a thinking rider who creates a thinking horse. Because when you understand how your horse's mind works and show up with empathy and presence, everything gets easier and a whole lot more fun. My goal is to keep riding easy and fun for everyone, while helping you deepen your connection, find more flow, and maybe even create your own unicorn along the way. Whether you're working on dressage movements or just trying to understand why your horse did that thing they did, we'll explore the research, the real talk, and the small shifts that make a big difference in and out of the saddle. So grab your boots, take a deep breath. What are you waiting for? Come ride with me. Hey guys, welcome back to the Thinking Horse and Rider. Last episode, I talked about shared communication with our horses and how our communication really needs to be a two-way street so that we can teach our horses to be partners instead of just drones, and instead of stressing them out by not giving them a voice in our training process. So this week we're going to talk about what happens when we feel like all our communication has failed. And usually it's because we're asking for too much and we're doing too many things. So this week we're going to talk about breaking it down. How do we break things down into smaller bite-sized pieces, which makes it easier for both you and your horse to learn? I know a lot of us are not blessed with horses that are highly trained, highly skilled, and we just get on and ride them. A lot of times we are learning together. And even if you do have a horse that is well trained, has some tricks, whatever you want to call it, it's very likely that you don't know how to activate those buttons. So you're still in a learning process and you guys still have to learn how to communicate. But often when we get frustrated or we get confused in our own minds, then the front part of our brain shuts off and we just don't know where to go. We can't remember what we've been taught. And it's hard for us to remember specific exercises that often we do in lessons. So what I like to do is tell people what are the pieces of a certain movement or whatever they're trying to do. What do you need to have to make this thing work? Then, if it's not working, they can slow down, pause, and go, okay, what are the pieces? And where do I feel like my puzzle is broken, right? Or is it every piece needs a little bit of work? It will depend probably on the day. But just know that in that moment of you thinking, I do not know what I'm doing, I do not have the skills or the tools for this, you do. This is a totally normal thing to happen. When we combine something like physical effort with the stress of thinking, our brain switches gears and it starts working off instinct because we've sort of overloaded it. Our nervous system is in a high drive, and now we've just lost access to the things that we do know. The reasoning part of your brain, that frontal lobe, it just goes offline. And now you're not really thinking with the humanist, most human, I don't know what the right term is, but the part of your brain that gives you the ability to reason and solve problems. You're not using that in the moment. You are just reacting. It's the same reason why when you walk into the grocery store and you've got all of other life happening and you forget that one thing that you came for, or you miss an appointment because you forgot about it. Life gets stressful. Same thing happens when we're writing. Your brain is overloaded. And humans have really created this problem for ourselves with all of the available stimulus that we have, right? Phones, computers, TV, all the options we have for food and grocery, and all of those things can easily overload the system. But when that happens in the saddle, most people start doing more. And actually, I guess most people do that in real life anyway, right? We just get busier. And then we try harder, we add more aids, and everything gets worse. And then what happens? Your brain shutdown gets worse. So what do? First thing, slow down. Practice that pause. Stop. There is no rule. This is one of those crazy shoulds out there in the horse world. There is no reason why you need to keep going. Stop, stand in the middle of the arena, stand in a shady spot, whatever. Stand where your horse is comfortable. Take a breath. Take 3 breaths. What you really want to do is find a place where you can find comfort again. So, in the very beginning, this is a practice. This is not something that you are just going to think about and you're going to do it every time on demand. It's a practice, it's a skill. So, in the very beginning, it's probably going to mean stopping what you're doing, taking some breaths, and then starting to think through the situation before you get going again. Yes, it might mean you stop trotting in those endless circles for a few minutes. It's fine. I know it's weird because someone told you that we should keep going. We shouldn't let the horse win. I don't know what they're winning. But anyway, your horse doesn't need to trot circles. You don't need to trot circles. You need to stop, stand still, take a breath or 3, let your system, let your brain settle down. And then gently start to re-engage your thinking part. Gently start to re-engage the thinking part of your brain. Get curious. When we're asking questions, then our brain is thinking that everything is safe. Brain is like, okay, I can process this. But if you're just reacting to what's happening, then the brain does not feel like it's safe. So ask yourself, what was I trying to do? What actually happened when I tried to do that? And don't place a judgment on it. Don't say my horse was bad, my horse was naughty, my horse did this, my horse did that. It's when I did this, this happened. Now, the bigger question is, did you actually feel that happen? Or are you not really sure what happened? And in that case, that means that your brain's been offline longer than you think, probably, and you're not using your sense of feel, your sense of exteroception. So you need to maybe go back and try it again and actually pay attention when you ask what happens. And then ask yourself, why did that happen? Is it because my horse doesn't understand what I'm asking? Is it because I asked for too much? Was I too strong in my request? Why do I think that happened? And then once you can think about why that might have happened, go back and try something different. Experiment. Stay playful in your thinking. Because the moment you start beating yourself up or talking negatively about your horse, telling yourself you're doing it wrong, you should be better, this shouldn't be happening, your horse should know better by now, you push yourself further out of the thinking state. And negative self-talk doesn't fix anything. If it does, we'd all be perfect, and we're not. Negative self-talk, negative talk about your horse, it actually makes it worse. So instead, wait for your brain to come back online and then get curious. Start asking those questions, make a plan, and start again. And plan to stop before your brain gets out of hand. So if you know that there's a point where your brain is going to go, ah, danger, danger, stop before you get there. I'll give you an example. If you have a fear of cantering, or maybe cantering is just hard right now. So if you ask for something in the canter, it's too much. Your brain is like, oh my God, I'm trying to save my life, trying to save our life. I can't possibly do that too. That's cool. If you have a fear around cantering, let's say, and you know that as soon as you apply the aids to canter, your brain is like, oh my God, we're going to die. That is something that you just acknowledge and then apply the aids for canter and don't worry about if you canter or not. Again, saying that when I put these aids on, we absolutely have to do this thing, life or death be damned, is ridiculous. I don't know where this wisdom came from in the horse world, but train your brain that applying the canter aids is not scary. And then you can work up to actually cantering. It may be the feeling of your horse responding to your canter transition that sets your brain into flight mode. So ask and then go right back to the trot or the walk or the halt or the whatever. Don't push your brain past its point of comfort. Now, you might be thinking, well, then I'm not going to grow. Not true. I didn't say don't push your brain to the limit. I said don't push it past its comfort. So you kind of push yourself to the edge of your comfort zone, and then you'll watch your comfort zone expand. But if you keep pushing yourself over the threshold, over the comfort zone, all your brain is trying to do is save your life. So don't do that. Get curious about what's causing your brain to think it needs to save your life. Make a plan. Start again. Plan to stop before your brain gets out of hand. Feel it out. Walk it out. And then you can go faster again. But the moment you feel yourself losing that thinking part of your brain, you stop. Rest if you need to. Or just come back to the point of comfort again. Maybe that is the trot. And maybe you can think a little bit in the trot. Maybe you can't. But I would say if you need to think too much, if you need to think a lot, then just stop. Give your horse that time to rest. We don't need to keep them going while we're working out our own issues. So that is how I would focus on training your brain to stay with you and stay with your horse. That is your rider skill to develop. That really has nothing to do with your horse. This is about you training your brain and developing a rider skill that is important to becoming better and doing bigger and better things down the road. A lot of times in this industry, we hear it's all about push, push, push. You know, do it harder, do it more, do it better. And that is not the fastest way or the best way. Riders are often not taught the skill of how to train your brain. The other thing that we forget is that our horses, while they know how to do pretty much everything we want them to do, we want them to do it on our timeline, right? So we need to teach our horse what our aids are and how we are going to request something from them. For instance, a flying lead change. Horses, you see them do this when they're turned out in the field by themselves, right? Sometimes they're not 100% clean, they're not show ring perfect, but they do them. And if your horse doesn't get turned out and doesn't get to roam on its own, that's a whole nother can of worms. Even when your horse doesn't know how to do a flying change on its own, your horse needs you to show them how you might ask them to do one. Oftentimes, when I am working on flying lead changes with a horse, I will take a video for one, and I'm not critiquing it like it's a show, right? I'm using it as information. And this is another thing that we need to get comfortable with is watching ourselves so we can learn from watching ourselves. And then I can compare what I'm seeing on the video to what I feel when I'm riding. Because a lot of times what I notice is that the issue isn't really about the flying change. It's about the parts of the flying change. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, I can show you a little bit of video and you'll see what I mean. That as I'm playing with these flying changes, what I notice is that the issue really isn't about the change. It's really about the quality of the canter and then the quality of his shoulder movement. He needs more uphill balance and more ability to lift and move his shoulders. This horse's simple changes are pretty good. Now, where you do run into problem is as you increase the speed that you want to ask for them, you'll get a little bit of downhill shoulders. One of the exercises that I do to break down these parts of the flying change is canter to walk or to halt, depends on where the horse is at, and then physically moving the shoulder, asking them to move off of the new inside shoulder, and then I ask them to pick up the canter again. And I repeat this process, and I want to feel when I ask that horse to move the shoulder, what happens? Do they go down in front? Or do they stay up and just glide the shoulder over? Because if they go down, also, if I ask the horse to back up a little step, what happens? Do they want to go down or do they stay up and together? So those are really good parts of your flying change that a lot of people don't consider. Rather than drill changes that I know are not great, what I do is I stop and I think about these missing ingredients. So then I can start to play with exercises that I know help with that. For instance, turns on the haunches, get the shoulders moving, schooling canter pirouette, canter half pass, head to wall leg yield into a canter depart. And the simple change with shifting the new inside shoulder before you ask for the new lead. And also, I might say, can you shift and think about a half a step of backup as you're doing it so that they think about keeping the shoulders up. When you're working on these parts, please don't try to make them perfect, like show ring perfect. Just get the result that you want and then go on. Doesn't have to be 3 steps of rein back, doesn't have to be a perfectly tight turn on the haunches. You know, these things do not have to be perfect. It's just, am I getting the feeling that I want to have when I'm going to need it in the flying change? As you do the exercises, you think about, okay, what feels hard? Which direction is harder? What's easy for my horse? Because if they get stuck somewhere and they get a little frustrated, I can go back and I can ask them to do something that is easy, that makes them happy, that makes them feel good. Where did things get sticky? And are they sticky because the horse is confused, or are they sticky because I am confused and I'm not coordinated? There's no shame in slowing down and training yourself to be coordinated for your horse. Pushing through, just getting it done, making it happen faster, whatever, is not going to do it. Got to slow down and think about things, right? We're not exactly training the flying change because, again, we know the horse knows how to do it. We're training the pieces that make it happen when we want it to happen. This is why breaking it down ties directly into shared communication. We're not trying to do everything at once. Your horse gets confused, you get confused, your brain gets scattered, and those bad habits that you're trying to fix, they get buried and they come out, usually even worse. But when you simplify things, your horse can actually answer the questions and you can actually hear what that answer is and feel what's happening. You hear all the time that horses love clarity because they do. But clarity lives in simplicity, not complexity. Confusion lives in complexity. We talked about last episode how horses' brains are quite similar to toddler brains. So again, think about how we teach younger children. If you say, go clean your room, they might go pick up a couple things and then they are going to be distracted. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to get it done. But if I say, go pick up all of your Pokemon cards and put them in your binder. Pick up your football cards, put those in your binder. Bring out all your cups, bring the trash out of the room. If I break it down into steps, they can go do each step. And eventually you can say, go clean your room. And they know what that means. But you have to teach them in smaller steps. One, because they just don't know what it means. And two, that's how their brain works. Their attention spans are pretty short, so you need to keep it short and simple. Pick up one toy, put it in the bin, repeat. Same thing with your horse. Pick up one skill, put it in the bin, repeat it. Don't teach big tasks all at once. Assemble them. Now we're going to talk about your mindset and how to keep a positive one. Because learning doesn't feel good most of the time. And usually what you'll find when you start breaking things down like this is that you're going to master a task. You're going to master the single flying change. And then you're going to want to start doing multiple flying changes in a row. And at that point, you're going to realize, oh crap, those ingredients that I thought I had that worked really well, they don't work well enough. They don't work fast enough. That doesn't mean that you have failed. It doesn't mean that you will never do tempi changes. What it means is that you just need to go back and refine those skills even further. People really get stuck on that. The thought of going back is scary. What you need to realize is it's not going back. It's actually building a bigger foundation. It's making your basics better and better. I know that learning doesn't feel good most of the time. We don't like to do it. That's why a lot of times we don't want to step outside of our comfort zones. I usually teach 4 phases of learning, and you can look these up anywhere, Google them to get more in depth. We have unconscious incompetence, which means we don't know what we don't know. Usually you're happy there because you just don't know what you don't know and everything is fine. But then suddenly you realize how much you don't know. And that brings you into the stage of conscious incompetence, which is really hard. That's a hard phase for people because you feel terrible, you feel like you're not good enough, you feel like you're just not getting it. It's fine. We've all been there. We're all going to be there again. We're going to revisit all of these stages all of the time. Then you're going to get to what we call conscious competence, where you can do it, but you still have to think about it. That's cool. A lot of people will kind of stop there though, because now we feel like I know this thing and I'm going to move on to something else. For instance, if you can do a single change, but you still have to really think about it and really set it up, really think about what you're doing with your body and what your horse is doing, just sit here and think about how much time that takes. You've missed 5 changes in the time you thought about all that, right? So you need to make yourself unconsciously competent so that you don't have to think about the basic steps. And the same thing goes for your horse, really. I teach them the same way. So when you do this, they do that, and you just refine it until both of you are doing it without thinking about it. Most horses and riders get stuck in that second phase, and it feels messy, it feels frustrating. It's not failure, it's learning. Getting worse is often the first sign that you're actually doing something right. And remember, horses learn in the same way we do, except that they don't overthink it like we do, unless we overthink it for them and then we ask too many things and then they can't figure out what's happening. Then it's a cycle, right? But basically, they learn through repetition, timing, clarity, and how they feel in the moment. So the better we feel, goes for horses and humans, in the moment, the faster we're going to learn. If your horse is struggling, they're probably not being difficult. They're processing information. If when they're processing information, you can't keep your head about you, you can't stay in that thinking part of your brain, you're going to start rushing, gripping, overdoing. The horse is bracing, speeding up, shutting down, just ignoring you. We're going to label that as bad behavior. We're not going to say, oh, my horse is learning. Or we're going to stop doing what we're doing because we're afraid that it might escalate to something else. But really, it's just dysregulation. Regulation is not built through experiences that never fall apart. People want to control the environment, they want to control the horse's reactions, they want to keep everything perfect because it feels safer. But what that teaches the horse is if something goes wrong, there's no way out, or I can't help you. That's not safety for the horse. Might feel safe for the human, but it doesn't feel safe for the horse. It actually feels like pressure to them. When things fall apart, we want our horses to look at us for help to get through it. But that means you as the human have to stay regulated and help your horse through it and help your horse learn how they can get through it safely. Know that falling apart is okay. If you miss a lead change, you can stop and fix it. You don't have to run around on the wrong lead trying to get your horse to change behind. Just stop. Make a nice simple change. Maybe practice several nice simple changes before you try the change again. That's staying regulated, that's being confident in what you're teaching your horse. And this is where self-carriage actually comes from. When we teach the horse how to handle the situations that we are going to put them in. This is why going simpler matters so much. Because when we go simple, you can stay calm, the horse can stay calm, and recovery becomes possible. And then we touch the limit of that simpleness. We touch the limits of our brain. And then the simpleness expands to another level of difficulty. When you do that, you create predictability, you create clarity, you create the space to think. Then your horse feels safe and interactive. So, of course, this week's 10-minute experiment is going to be built exactly around this idea. I want you to pick one thing that you're struggling with, one thing. It could be that canter depart or the flying lead change. Break it down into its basic ingredients. And I would recommend that you do this before you get on your horse. If you're not sure what the basic ingredient for the movement that you want to do is, you can probably find it online somewhere, or at least some ideas. Once you've figured out what two pieces of this puzzle will be, choose two simple exercises that will help you. And if you don't know, again, you can probably find those online. What will help me get a better canter to walk transition? What will help me get a better shoulder yield or a turn on the haunches? You may find several different answers. That's cool. Experiment. See what works for you and your horse. There's no harm in that at all. And then go out, play with it. There's no pressure to do that thing. There's no pressure to canter. There's no pressure to get the flying lead changes on the first try. You're just getting information. When I ask, what happens? Then you can think about it when I do this exercise. Is that good? Do I need to work on that? What else might I be missing? When you start to think about it like that, you will notice what gets better, what feels sticky, what needs to get simpler. Where are we starting to get confused? I love to keep a whiteboard or my goal sheet on a laminated piece of paper. I will use a dry erase marker and write down when I think about it. Usually, I'll try something and then as I'm getting off and I'm untacking and I'm processing, things are going to come to me and I'm like, oh, let me try that. So I will write them on the whiteboard, write them on the laminated goal sheet, and then I can try them. I can look at that next time I get to the barn. I can try it. Then I can say, ooh, that helped. That didn't help. That was good. So maybe there's another piece that we're missing. These are all skills. Riding is like going to school. It's not just something that you get on and flop around and hope everything works out well. Sorry. Progress isn't built by pushing harder and using more force. It's built by understanding. And one of the things that horses love is play, right? They have a high play drive in their herd environments. And so next week, we're going to take this a step further and we're going to show you how you can make some of these exercises, some of these drills that we want to do more fun for your horse. How you can make your horse really want to participate. And if you've ever watched videos of a horse that is really participating, really wants to, you already know how powerful that is. I'm betting that you would love to have that in your life. So, stay tuned for next week. If you want to get the 10-minute experiments into your inbox every week, I put them in my weekly newsletter. So you can go to equisenlightened.com and sign up for the newsletter there. I've also got a freebie on the site. It's a workshop that I did on energy, timing, and joy. Check all of those out and see you next time. Happy riding. I'll put all the links in the show notes for you too. All right, horse fiends, thanks for hanging out with us today. If this episode got your gears turning, don't forget to check out Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart. The links are in the show notes. It's the program that'll take everything we talked about here and actually help you apply it in real life with your horse. And hey, before you ride off, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review of the show. It helps more riders like you find us and keep these conversations going. All the links you need are waiting in the show notes. Happy riding!